settled. Let me sit here, but I want to point out that indeed the Kenyan elections impact so much to the way business is done in Uganda, most especially the border communities. For instance, what I want to point out is that during our activities implementation in the civil society sector in Sebei, you find out that we get a lot of people get a lot of information through the media. For example, the TV, the radio stations that are from Kenya, not Uganda. It is hard to get a local or to get to listen or watch the TV station in the Ugandan side, and yet you are in Uganda. People concentrate on the Citizen TV and KTN and K24, the FM stations. So people imagine that they're in Kenya because for you to watch an NTV station, you have to pay. You have to have a DSTV, or you have to pretend that you have gone to the restaurant and buy a cup of tea so that you can watch the news. So people watch Kenyan media free of charge. And yet in Uganda, you have to pay. So people have reached a point where they access a lot of information from Kenya. They associate they have a lot of association. They associate themselves with the Kenyan businesses, the way Kenyan do things, because they access it free of charge. For example, during our civic education engagement, we've been going to the Kenyan radio stations to speak to Ugandans. So you go to a Kenyan station in Kalia, that's West Pokot or Kitale, and you speak like you're in Uganda, and everyone listens, and even Kenyans call in. You see that? And it becomes very interesting because now in Uganda, the FM stations are all for the sub-county, but Kenyan stations cover the whole region. You see that? So you cross and you speak to your own people. It's very amazing. And sometimes even as we cross the other side, we go with the Ugandan government officials. You see that? And people they really get confused and wonder how can we then cross if our own government officials cross to Kenya to speak to us. Who are we not to associate ourselves with Kenyan politics? You see that? And that kind of thing. So even when we organize for the community forums, we announce from Kenyan radios. Kenyans also come across to Uganda to come and participate, Kenyan leaders, and they are held accountable in a Kenyan side. You see that? And then there's a scenario that's funny. In Swam, across the Kenyan side, it's not developed. The place is not developed. There are no houses, but there's a polling station. There is an administrative unit. There is the LSC1 unit, but there are no people. People are in Uganda. So you find that when you break a law, even in Uganda side, they can refer you to Kenya, and you go and arrested the other side. The people who work in Kenyan side at the border, the policemen, they rent houses in Kenya, in Uganda. So you at the end of the day, you remove your uniform and you cross to Uganda and come and stay. The next morning you cross, you go and put on uniform. You see that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is that even the infrastructure, the radio net, the road networks are very super the other side. There was a point that for us to access Bukwa side, if you are from Kapchora, to access Bukwa, the next district, you come to Mbale, pass Wakaka or Malaba, come back, go to Kitale, and then come back to Uganda. You see that? So the network was okay. The road networks was super, unlike compared to the other side. So people think that I think if Kenya is peaceful, if Kenya elect well, they will have a chance to go to Kenya because that is where they access social services more cheaper, more quickly. Like for example, the insurance system, the health sector. People access health services cheaply in Kenya than Uganda, and quality. Another thing, the financial services in Kenya. In Bukwo and Kwen, there are no banks. You see that? And that's why the borders that borders the other side. People do a lot of farming, they do a lot of businesses, but they don't have the banks, the financial institutions to bank their money. So they access Kenyan banks, financial institution quickly, and and yet they're in Uganda. That comes. So they really see that if things are well in Kenya, they will benefit directly. And you can imagine that even during the other time, the general elections, they in Uganda, the Ruto had to fly to Uganda to campaign for Yoweri Museveni. And he spoke in the local language. He persuaded the people that look here, vote for the big man so that the road is worked on. He was going to speak to Museveni, and then the road is worked on. Currently, the road is about to get finished, meaning that the other counterpart, the leaders from the other side, are more influential in their community. People have been crying that we need the road, but when Ruto spoke in one day, the road was worked on. He requested that Resebei is given a full cabinet position. People have been requesting here and there. Only once, when Ruto spoke, we have a minister of water and environment. You see that? People have discovered, and now people requested for schools, maybe construction of schools in the community. And Kenyan government, not coming, but Ruto himself, has constructed one secondary school in Kapchorwa, one in Kwen district, and another one in Bukwa district. No other leader here has ever done that. Local leader, for example, or has ever seen that. You know, they speak and they don't act. So people feel the other side, people speak and they act immediately. Another thing is that what I've always spoken about, to access social services like health facilities, health services, and then the financial services, the bank services, people must have IDs. So people have been forced to look for Kenyan IDs so that they can be able to access some of these things, or they can even move free of charge without being intimidated when they're in Kenya. So what I'm pointing out is that people there feel more than Kenyans than Uganda, because those guys, they feel those guys love them more than this other side, the leader, I mean the local leaders. And even a member of parliament in Kenya has got a lot of money. They have CDF, that is, they call it Constituency Development Fund. And they have taken care of the Ugandan side. When people are crying for water, these guys cross and they even drill boreholes in Uganda. When there is an outbreak of these foot and mouth diseases, or when there is vaccination, there is vaccination of cattle in Kenya, they also cross and vaccinate animals in Ugandan side. Something that is funny, but it's happening. It is really happening. In Buko, for example, or in Sebei, if you have a Kenyan currency, like you have a dollar, people look for that money like nothing, because they trade more carefully. They trade more in Kenya than this other side, and the money has got value, and the products is readily available and of cheaper and good standard, good quality. So you can see that you can easily say, I don't want Kenyan currency, and yet you're in Uganda and you want foreign currency. It is happening. If you happen to reach Sebei, you may think you're in Kenya. Motorcycles. People have Kenyan motorcycles like never before. You see that? And they get them through loan. It's a loan scheme. You go acquire a loan, you get pay some little money, then you're given a motorcycle so that you pay loan in Kenya. And then now, even when these guys are to recover, they have people who recover for them in Ugandan side. They recognize them as Kenyans. So it is only the border. But in a sense, the business there, what is happening there, it happens like you're in Kenya. So people have shaped themselves, and they know that much of the things that we get, if life is to be improved, if everything is to be done well, they have to participate very keenly in the Kenyan elections, because they've seen the benefits, they've seen how things are happening. And I do not want to forget and I want to point out very clearly that the Kenyan leaders do cross to Uganda to even campaign. If you don't cross to Uganda and campaign in those districts, you cannot, your chances of going through in Kenya as elected leader is very slim, because you have to come and convince them. I was saying that almost half of the people there have Kenyan IDs, and many of them are still scrambling. Like, for example, this money that they pay to the elderly. In Kenya, they pay very well. Now the elders in Uganda, because you have ID, you want to register yourself so that you can get you're paid. The sage, you're paid money. So now they know that they will benefit double. They will get from Kenya and they will get from Uganda. And they have also understood very well the issue of East African integration, that you can have a dual citizenship. In Kenya, you can be a Kenyan and you can also be Ugandan, and you work freely, knowing that it's only that when you want to contest to be a political leader, that's when you can relinquish the other one and say, no, now I'm leaving, I'm not a Kenyan, I'm now Ugandan. Then you can now participate freely without any problem. And for example, these athletes, most of our athletes, they used to go and train in Kenya. When they were there, they also registered as Kenyans. And they mastered the art. And now, mastering the way Kenyans do things made them to use other ways of beating them up. And that's why now we are beating Kenyans in athletics. It is because people access the other side, they pretended that they are Kenyans. After all, they realized that, oh, when those guys were thinking that these are Kenyans, they literally they know that Kumba, they were Ugandans, and we are not beating them hands up. You see that? This is the gymnastics. So associating with them helps us we are now beating them in many other things, which is a plus. And what is funny now again, now those Kenyans now, they want to marry. Most of our athletes who are girls who are running, the women, are married to Kenyans. you see, most of them, if you do your statistics, those guys are revenging, but we don't want to revenge. We want to show them that we can beat them in athletics and many other things. And in 5 or 10 years to come from now, those guys are going to respect Uganda. And it's not because of the gymnastics that we use. We pretended because we speak the same language, we speak the same everything, and that kind of thing. So I want to end there for now, and then we proceed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.